谢谢特别。I had that thought as I walked away. We still don't flip in it.
Good evening. Welcome to the Cherry Pie Debate, sponsored by the Leland Enterprise, Interlochen Public Radio, and the League of Women Voters. My name is John Melkert. I'm publisher and COO of the Enterprise. My co-moderator is Ed Ronco, news director at Interlochen Public Radio. And at this point, if we could stand and we'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. First of all, we hope you enjoyed the coffee, pie, and ice cream. Compliments of Leland Coffee Roasting Company, Jamoski Bakery, and Cherry Republic. Let's give them a round of thanks. And the League of Women Voters has a table at the front door. They're available to answer any questions you may have and help you get registered to vote.
The goal of tonight's event is to allow candidates to clearly state why they should be elected to represent you. We expect everyone to be civil and respectful. Conversation is what we want to rule the night, not confrontation. This evening's event will be broken into two segments: Leelanau County Board of Commission and State House District 103. The first segment will allow each commission candidate 2 minutes to introduce themselves and offer their views on county issues. The second part will be the discussion between House of Representatives candidates.
We ask that you respect the candidates. Do not cheer, clap, shout, or disrupt them at any time. Tonight is not the night for your voices to be heard. Tonight we're here to listen to the candidates. Please turn off your cell phones, silence them so it's not disruptive during the evening. So let's have a good neighbor-to-neighbor conversation this evening.
All right, part one, Leelanau County Board of Commission. The flow will be by district number, with candidates answering in each district in alphabetical order. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to speak. Candidates, you do not need to use your full time if you don't want to. However, you may not use more time. Our timer will alert you when 30 seconds remain, and again at 15 seconds. And at the end of the allotted time, we will inform you, of course, the time is up.
Very good. So starting off, District 1, serving Southern Elmwood Township, Tim McCauley.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tim McCauley, and for those from Elmwood Township, with your vote, I will be your next commissioner for District 1. A little about myself. I'm a man of faith. I'm a husband. My wife and I have 6 children, 16 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. I'm also proud to be one of 12 children. I have 11 siblings. I came of age an adult in the 1970s. Many of you here will remember those times. 18 to 23% interest, extremely high unemployment. Does it seem to you that we're coming back to those days? They're coming back around. I worked as a civil servant. I was an air traffic control supervisor at Cherry Capital Airport for 25 years. During those years, I learned never quit. You always work toward a solution. Teamwork and camaraderie are imperative. Trust is essential. Decisive decision-making there is a time to wait and a time to act. And last but not least, a wasteful, inefficient bureaucracy is not your friend. I'm also a dedicated believer in the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Within these documents is a principle known as the Castle Doctrine. You might recognize it as a man's home is his castle. Does it not feel that there is an assault not only on your home, household, but also on your country? I make my stand on these principles: limited government, open and transparent communication, and responsible spending. Thank you.
Our next candidate, Rick Robbins.
Thank you for everybody that's here tonight. Thank you for the enterprise for putting us on. My name's Rick Robbins. I'm running for District 1. That's Elmwood and part of the city. I was the commissioner back in 2021 to December 22. Had 2 years off. I've been involved behind the scenes on both parties with the commission. I know what's up, what's been going on, and what needs to be done here come January. There's a lot of things that has to be done. I mean, we have to start addressing beginning of the year with our administrator, employment, employees, and what have you. But what's most important is you people out here, because you guys are on November 5th going to exercise your right to vote. And that's what's most important, to hear your vote and see where it goes. But what's more important after the vote is that you show up at the meetings and we hear your voice, because that's when we were the best as commissioners, is when we hear your voice at the meetings. I mean, back in my time, there was one meeting there that you guys filled the room there, the early childhood development. And that's when 7 commissioners finally listened that night and did the right thing. So your vote's important, but your voice is also more important. And I appreciate you being here. Hopefully I will be your commissioner come January 1st. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Rick. Next up, District 2, serving northern Elmwood and southern Bingham Township, Scott Perry.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you to the Enterprise and the League, everyone who helped set up this evening. I'm really appreciative to have a forum where we can have honest discussion regarding impactful concepts in our own neighborhood with our own neighbors. My name is Scott Perry. I grew up in Traverse City, graduated from TC West in 2005, and then went on to Michigan State University to study economics. While I was there, I started a business, a wedding DJ company that I'm very proud is still very successful now. In the face of the financial crisis in 2007, a lot of my classmates were really struggling to find work in a tough employment market. So I took a bet on myself, dropped out of school, and carved out a career right here in my hometown. Now that I'm here, I really would like to give back to the community that has offered me so much, both personally and professionally. I met my wife on a dance floor, maybe no surprise to anyone, but I do like to dance. And she works here locally at the farm, Lakeview Hills Farm. So sustainable agriculture is very important to me. I definitely love the natural beauty of this community and would work very hard to protect it. It would take way more than 2 minutes to list all the things I love about Leelanau County, but in short, this place is irreplicable, and I know it's very important to all of us to maintain the things we love about Leelanau, and also usher in the future with growth that is sustainable and effective for our community and neighbors we can all agree on. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the evening with some really smart discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Next is Mark Walter. I do not believe Mark is here unless he came in after we started. No, Mark, okay. District 3, serving southern Suttons Bay Township. Will Bunnick, Will called and he had a conflict tonight, so he is not in attendance. So Lois Bailey.
So, hello, Glen Arbor, to all my friends and neighbors. Hi. It always feels strange to introduce myself to people that I think know me so well. I'm Lois Bailey from the village of Suttons Bay. During my working career at Bailey's, I served on the Suttons Bay Chamber of Commerce as the president and the secretary for many years. I also served on the Village Planning Commission and the County Planning Commission. I am a founding member of the Leelanau Trail, which you now know as the TART Trail System, an asset for our community, for our residents and our visitors. I currently serve on the Leelanau Peninsula Economic Foundation, working with the committee to create a housing plan. I serve on the Solid Waste Council, working with the State Materials Management Plan to increase recycling for the state and add composting to that program, which Bob Laporte would cheer on. I'm an enthusiastic member of the Energy Task Force advocating for clean renewable energy to reduce our carbon footprint. And I am a member of the Suttons Bay Bingham Foundation Advisory Board, which is a fund under the Grand Traverse Regional Community Foundation. After winning the recall election, I cooperated with Commissioner Elgire and we passed the septic inspection ordinance. It took 30 years to get that done to protect our clean water. I volunteer, I show up, and I'm running again. Thank you.
Thank you, Lois. District 4, serving northern Suttons Bay Township and Leelanau Township. Ty Wessel.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Ty Wessel, and thank you to the Enterprise and Interlochen Public Radio, League of Women Voters. I've been a commissioner for 10 years, a member of the Leelanau Rotary Club, the Northport Lions Club, the Leelanau Prospectors Club. I'm on the board for the Leelanau Township Community Foundation. I also serve on the Community Mental Health Board and the Board of Health. I serve my community. I try to do it well, but I'm a teacher, and I like report cards. And so this is a report card. I got about 30 seconds to do it. We have worked well together. Most votes on that county commission are 7-0 or 6-1, once in a while 5-2. We've balanced the budget. We've adopted a code of conduct for how commissioners behave together. We work well together. We respect each other. We have fun together. I think we've served you well. And the MERS retirement system is the envy of almost every county in the state because of our financial position. I am proud of the early childhood program. I am proud of the septic. I'm most proud, however, about the respectful way that we try to serve this county. Thank you very much. I'd appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Ty. James White.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jim White, and I'm here because I love cherry pie. I'd like to thank the Leelanau Enterprise and Interlochen Public Radio for hosting this event and giving me the opportunity to address all of you. You should also thank them because they told me I can only talk for 2 minutes. First, let me tell you about myself so you know who you're dealing with. I'm a West Point graduate and an Army veteran who spent 6.5 years in the service before leaving to join Pepsi-Cola as a manager of their production, manufacturing, and logistics operations. After 12 years, I changed careers again to become a financial advisor and spent 27 years advising individuals and small corporations on their finances and investments. I had no plans to run for office before July 1st when I retired, just in time to jump into my first political campaign. But once I became a full-time resident of Leelanau County, I began to find out about how the government operates. And frankly, what I found out kind of shocked and disappointed me. I spent years managing money for the Army, for Pepsi, and then indirectly for individuals, helping them with their investments. And I know good financial management and profitable investing when I see it, and what's happening at the Leelanau County Board ain't it. For example, did you know that your board spent over $1 million of your taxes reorganizing the government and trying to hire a chief financial officer only to cancel those plans? That's money down the drain. They also invested $4 million of county and federal money in the Point Broadband project and ended up owning nothing. That's a bad investment. Now the board is trying to get a $1 million project grant from the MPSC for a solar panel project, and they're offering to spend at least $1 million of county money on EVs and charging infrastructure. And the bottom line is that kind of reckless and wasteful spending has increased the county's spending expenses by at least 30% in the last 2.5 years. In my opinion, that trend is unsustainable and irresponsible. It's past time for a change. So remember this all, vote for change, vote for Jim White. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim. District 5, serving Leland and Centerville Townships. Alan Campbell.
Again, thank you to the league. Thank you to the enterprise. John, you confiscated all the vegetables at the door, right? So we're good there. All right. And certainly NPI. Appreciate that. I'm Al Campbell. I'm running to be your next commissioner. And it's easy for me to be a little nostalgic in this hall. My wife and I helped start, or we did start the cherry pie debate many, many years ago, a long time ago. And the reason why is people like to talk about other things than politics when they're eating. And sometimes they even listen. They kind of have to because you got to chew. And so I think it's a good thing to gather around food. Just at dinner, just to gather and talk. I remember my son Cody ladling out ice cream and then getting lost for about 20 minutes with his own big pump back there. But now I'm running for commissioner. People ask me what I want to do if elected. And I can assure you, I don't want to create a whole new Leelanau County. But I would like to fix a few things. The county board had been conservative in its spending. I want to get back to that. One-time projects don't explain away a nearly 30% jump in spending over 3 years. The board has been on a hiring spree too. The latest is a facilities director. That position, which is new, pays $90,000. Frankly, I just don't see a need for a facilities director for $90,000. I counteract that a little bit because I've been in business, and I've been in business most of my life. I never felt short on a payday, and even when I couldn't write myself a paycheck. My time as a volunteer has been rewarding, especially since my wife Deb and I sold the enterprise on Chair Kids Fishing Day. We had fun. We had 1,000 people there. I helped lead one of the largest scholarship programs in the county. It's kind of hard to beat the police boys, though. And just Monday, I was a guide at Wings of Freedom hunt. So anyways, I want to thank you for all your time. And I will stop according to Ms. Hubble. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Kama Ross.
Good evening. It has been my pleasure to serve as your county commissioner for the past 2 years. Sorry. I have thoroughly enjoyed getting to know more of my neighbors, getting to understand their concerns, and to understand what it means to represent them on the County Board of Commissioners. It is wonderful to live in a community that is informed and engaged in our democracy. Thank you to our organizers tonight, but mainly thank you for attending. Serving my community, volunteering alongside my neighbors, and working with people to address the issues that they care about motivates me and brings me joy. Because I'm active and engaged in the community, I am listening to you as we work together. I hear firsthand what your concerns are and what the challenges are that many of us share. I believe my role as a commissioner is to work collaboratively with area leaders to meet those challenges. I believe that local government plays a pivotal role in improving the lives of its residents. We need to focus on ensuring a sustainable and prosperous future for everyone who lives in Leelanau County, whether they are sixth generation or new to the county bringing in fresh talent. I also hear that we have a lot in common. We want to live in a community where people care about each other, and we want a county that leads by supporting its people so that all people thrive. I bring my 38 years of career of protecting the environment to the board. and we all are tied closely to this land we call home. I lead with a promise of good stewardship, not only of our natural resources, but of our human and our financial resources as well. I have worked very hard in my first term to help support effective and efficient county government. Serving on the county board is a huge honor and a responsibility that I take extremely seriously. I pledge to listen, do my homework, build consensus with my Democratic and Republican colleagues to address issues important to you and your family. I will continue to bring well-informed, respectful, and representative leadership to the county board. Your voice is important to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Kama. District 6, serving Glen Arbor, Empire Township, and Cleveland Township, Gwen Allgaier.
It is so good to see all of you here. Welcome to beautiful District 6. And thank you to IPR, the Enterprise, and the League of Women Voters. We all make democracy work, don't we? I want to thank those of you who voted for me, who supported me in the last 2 elections. And yes, I'm asking for your vote again. I think experience matters. It takes a while to figure out how county government works. We're going to have a new administrator. It's really important that we have some commissioners who can help that person get oriented to our fabulous staff and to the way our county works and all of your needs here in Leelanau County. Our finance department that was torn asunder without any plans 3 years ago, we stumbled, but we are done just about. As of yesterday, we're fully staffed. We have a very experienced, smart staff. We still need financial software. So again, our work is not done, and I want to be there to help finish. My focus for the last few years has been broadband. We're not done. Spectrum had an RDOF grant. They did 700 houses, 40% more than they needed to, but they didn't have, the grant wasn't big enough to finish. We have another federal grant coming. It is BEAD, Broadband Equity Deployment. We are asking our providers to apply for it. If you haven't contacted me and you need broadband, please talk to me afterwards. I'm still fighting for you, and they want me to stop, but I'm going to ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen. Mark Roberts.
Good evening, I'm Mark Roberts, and I come to you today running for the county commissioner position in District 6, which we're in right now. I come to you, I'm running for a county commissioner, not as a politician, but rather as a concerned citizen. And I'm not alone, there's a lot of concerned citizens right now. And Alan Campbell and Jim White kind of stole my thunder because there's a lot of out of control spending going on in our county right now. And that's when I'm out talking to fellow citizens and community members, this is not the direction we want to be going. In fact, I think the 3 most important things that I keep hearing over and over again are lower taxes, and lower taxes. Well, you can't get lower taxes when you're spending wildly on pet projects. So those are the things that we need to rein in. Some of these things are really nice idea on paper, but when there's no chance of a break even 30 years out, that's not a project that we need to be taking on. And I can certainly go into more detail afterwards if anyone wants to meet up with me. I'd be happy to do it. Okay, well, To that end, what I bring to the table, I have more than 20 years of senior management experience in medical and pharmaceutical companies, and I've managed budgets well over $20 million successfully. Activity is great, but it's not great if it doesn't lead to success. And that's what we have to have in Leelanau County. So my goal is to make sure Leelanau County stays beautiful, safe, and financially healthy. And if you want that as well, please vote for Mark Roberts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. District 7, serving Casson and Solon Township. Tim Dowd.
Hello. Thank you all for being here this evening. So many people to thank. The League of Women Voters, IPR, the Enterprise, and especially the pie bakers. So I've come to you as a retired journeyman carpenter, and I come from a union household. My wife is a retired letter carrier. I've got some experience in leadership in this county. We had a situation where they wanted to build a enduro motorcycle racetrack, and we gathered together our neighbors, 200 of them, and we fought. We went to planning meetings, we went to zoning board of appeal meetings. Eventually, it was taken all the way to circuit court. We won. We formed a group of concerned people that are worried about this landfill that is about to top out. And we formed a group called The Crowd, where we're working with the Solid Waste Council to divert organic waste out of the landfill and make something that's useful for farmers, compost. I've got some experience with FEMA. I'm a disaster housing inspector. I'm here by the grace of them because I should be in North Carolina. So I've put together a postcard that's got the issues that I'm interested in. Number one is to build relationships so we can all get along at the county level and get things done to build a great community. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Steve Yoder.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Yoder. I'm by far probably the youngest candidate for commissioner, so I'll get to finish it out tonight so you can listen to Betsy Goffey and Lisa Trombley. Like I said, I'm Steve Yoder. I manage a family business in the ag industry. I live in Cedar with my beautiful wife and young son. We're involved in agriculture. I currently serve on the Solon Township Board as well. I've done that for the past 8 years. Enjoyed doing that. I serve on my Township Planning Commission. I chair the County Planning Commission, so I'm very well dealt, very well experienced in just zoning in that sense. I look forward to bringing that experience to the county boards with a common sense approach. And I think what I feel most passionate about is, the Leelanau County has been in the news a lot lately, and I think it's time to get it there. Obviously, we got an administrator we need to replace, or not replace, but fill that role. And I think that's vital that we fill that if the current board doesn't do it as well. But I think the other thing I'm adamant about is just to bring a common sense approach. I think that's been missing. And I know something that I've been adamant about at my local level and I want to bring to the county board is to give everybody a voice. I think a lot of times citizens come to the meetings, they don't feel heard. And I think that's important that as commissioners, that you give everybody a voice, whether you agree or not, you give them a voice and listen to that, listen to all sides with a balanced approach. So with that, if I haven't met you, I look forward to meeting you out at the doors or wherever I'm at. But with that, I would love to have your vote on November the 5th, if not before. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. This concludes the county commissioner portion of our agenda. We appreciate all the candidates putting themselves out there to serve our communities. We're very grateful for that. We thank you and we wish good luck to all of you. And now you may clap for the county commissioner.
If you're ever feeling down on yourself, walk into a room and say, now you may clap. And it will pick you right up. When I came here about 2 years ago and moved here about 2 years ago, we're gonna get resituated for the second part of the debate here, but I just wanted to tell you, one of the very first things that happened when I got my job at IPR was my boss said, you've got to get in touch with the Leelanau Enterprise and start planning this thing with them called the Cherry Pie Debate that we've been doing with them for a while now. And I said, okay, do I get to go to Leelanau County? And he said, yes. And I said, do I get to eat pie? And he said, yes. And so I said, great, best job ever. So it's really nice to be here with you. We're going to take a short pause while we get the mics resituated, and then we'll re-explain exactly how the second part of the evening is going. So don't wander too, I would encourage you actually not to wander at all, but please chat for a second and we'll bring you back to order in about 2 minutes. So.
So the YouTube feed's not going through? As far as I know, it is. Somebody came in and said it's not going through. Look at that. User error. That person's name John. What's that? Audio. I've been muting it at some points, but the audio isn't coming through, so people could see but not hear. Is it muted right now? No, that one's not working. Oh, it's this one. Yeah. But I keep struggling with this. Yeah, looks like it's. Yeah, we're good, but I can't bounce and bounce. Yes, but it's all right. Here's hoping.
We're home. Don't get to drink anymore, so I can drink all water. If she doesn't care, give her a big hug. And if she
Okay. Well, good evening again. Thank you for being here for the Cherry Pie Debate as we go into our second part here for House District 103. Let's remind everybody of the guidelines of this debate. Audience, just a reminder, we ask that you respect the candidates and do not cheer, clap, shout out, or disrupt them in any way. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes for opening comments. Candidates drew straws to see who goes first. Representative Kofia will go first as a result of that. We will then move into the question and answer portion. We will ask a question. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to respond. Each then will be given up to a minute for rebuttal. The order will flip with each question. The candidates and their campaigns have not seen the questions. At the conclusion of the question and answer period, each candidate will be given 2 minutes for closing comments. Candidates, as before in the previous part of the debate, you do not have to use the full time allotment, but you may not use more time. And our timer, of course, will alert at 30 seconds remaining, and again at 15 seconds. And at the end of the allotted time, you'll be informed that the time is up. During the rebuttal time, the timer will alert you at 30 seconds and 15 seconds remaining. And again, please do not exceed your allotted time. So we begin with opening statements. And Representative Kofia, you were the winner of the straw poll, so it's all you.
Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters, the Leelanau Enterprise, IPR for hosting, and thank you so much to each of you for taking time to be with us here tonight. I'm Betsy Kofia, and for the last 2 years, I've had the incredible honor of being your state representative. I'm a former newspaper editor, I'm a former social worker, and 2-term Grand Traverse County Commissioner before arriving at this role. And I'm in public service because this is my home, because my roots are deep, and I want to continue to be a part of making this incredible region a place where we all can thrive. I've lived nearly my whole life in Northern Michigan as a kid from a working class family, a college student working 3 jobs to put myself through NMC and Ferris State, and then as a young professional trying to make a life here, and now I'm not so young professional, I'm 50, also working to make a life here. It's an amazing place, and it's increasingly challenging for many of our young families, our workers, our seniors to make it here. And that has serious ramifications for the well-being of our region, for our future, for our small businesses, our schools, and our community as a whole. Tough challenges, I find, require tenacity and commitment. And that is what you hopefully have seen from me and what you will continue to see from me as a proud member, a longtime member of this community. I am proud that in my first 6 months on the job as a state rep, I was able to tackle a decades-old problem with our schools and equity funding and got a new formula into the state school aid fund with $125 million more for our rural school districts for the extra cost to get kids to the classroom. I am proud that I worked with my Republican colleague, Senator DeMoose. We got $15 million for the Freshwater Research Innovation Center in Elmwood Township, the largest non-education related expenditure from the state budget for Leelanau County that we are aware of, and that will bring hundreds of well-paying jobs. I'm proud that I worked with our beloved Patricia Sudis Little and got $800,000 into the state budget for tuition assistance for our young families for childcare, as well as for childcare startups. And I'm proud to have voted to bring our community millions of dollars and add more tools and remove barriers for us to tackle our ongoing housing crisis. In a second term, you will get from me what you've always gotten: practical, pragmatic, bipartisan leadership, and someone who always puts Northern Michigan first. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Trombley.
Good evening, and thank you to IPR, Leelanau Enterprise, League of Women Voters. Appreciate you all doing it, and thank you mostly to all of you for coming out and being interested in how things are going to move forward. I grew up in Michigan, born near Detroit, grew up in Holland, went to school in Ann Arbor, worked there for a little bit before I went on to work in the DC area. I spent my summer vacations here with my son and his father, so my son actually thinks he's a Michigan kid, even though he was born and raised in Virginia. And I think Michigan, we have it all. We have legacy industries. We've got phenomenal educational institutions. We've got wonderful small businesses and natural resources that every other state envies. But we're not being all that we can be. Lansing needs to do right by the families and the businesses that choose to be here, and especially for the next generation. The $20 billion budget increase over the last 2 years is, quite frankly, unfathomable to me, particularly because it includes pet projects for downstate, it dips into our rainy day funds, and while we're struggling with inflation, and it does not make appropriate investments in infrastructure and education, which are critical roles of government. I've knocked a lot of doors, and this is not what Northern Michigan wants. As a business leader, mission success was always the goal, and it was not negotiable. I set priorities, delivered within budget and schedule, and made investments in both to deliver both value and future investments for both the client and the company. Our state government should do exactly the same particularly when they're spending our money. 2 years ago, I was in your seat, never dreaming I would be sitting here at this table today. But I am here asking to be your next representative. I want to work with both sides of the aisle. I want to move this state in a better direction. I want it to be more business friendly, more family friendly, and more workforce friendly. Thank you.
Thank you. The first question is for Representative Copia. Line 5 pipeline continues to be unsettled. What is your position on how the legislature and state should move forward?
Sure, thank you for the question. So Line 5, I'm sure most folks, if not all in this room, are aware. This is a twin oil and gas pipeline that runs not buried under the straits, but in fact just directly in the Straits of Mackinac, right under the Mackinac Bridge. And it's over 60 years old. It is past its really expiration date in terms of infrastructure. And the 12 tribes who have been caretakers of our water for generations really want to see that pipeline removed and rerouted. Many folks in this community and many folks who have seen the statistics of what would happen even for a 10-minute leak from such a pipeline, the impact on the businesses, the economy, not to mention the clean water, would be just unfathomable. So where we're at right now, the governor had issued a public statement and had thrown down on this issue and said that they were in violation. Enbridge, which is a foreign Canadian company, was in violation of their agreement with the state of Michigan that the pipeline should come out. They have ignored that. They have litigated it. It has gone to federal court. It is now in state court, and the Attorney General is very actively challenging this foreign company that is really putting private gain for foreign company over public good in our Great Lakes. The legislature does not actually have legal jurisdiction in this situation. That's the challenge that we have. I am hoping that the courts and the Attorney General will resolve this issue in a way that is actually protecting our Great Lakes, but the legislature really does not have legal jurisdiction in this matter.
Thank you. Ms. Trombley?
So it's clearly an emotional issue. You've seen road signs for and against this. Line 5 is critical to families up here in Northern Virginia, that will make all of the news for everyone here in Northern Michigan. Too many years in Northern Virginia. Sorry about that. So this is not something, to Betsy's point, this is not something that the legislature has a role in at this point in time. I don't believe there is any active litigation at this point. I could be wrong, but I believe we are waiting on the environmental studies at the federal level. Once that comes through, things will proceed barring any additional action. For me, Line 5 is a critical part of an all of the above energy solution. Energy is critical to absolutely everything we do. It's critical to business, it's critical to families. A lot of families in Northern Michigan depend upon Line 5 to provide heat for their homes and businesses to provide the energy they need to conduct their business.
Thank you. Rebuttal? Very good, thank you.
All right. Michigan voters in 2022 passed an amendment to put the right to reproductive freedom in our state constitution. There are efforts to restrict access to birth control options, and overturning Roe versus Wade has put abortion rights in the spotlight. This question is for Ms. Trombley first. Where do you stand on the freedom to control personal health issues and the potential impact of the overturning of Roe versus Wade?
My heart breaks for any woman or family faced with dealing with an unwanted pregnancy. To your point, 2 years ago, the Michigan voters voted in Proposal 3, which put in place a constitutional amendment that allows any woman to receive an abortion for any reason at any point during her pregnancy. For me, that is done. The legislature cannot rule on any part of that, though that right now ensconced in our Constitution cannot be infringed upon by the legislature. My hope would be that, and I think we are blessed with a variety of other options in the event that woman and family choose life, they have a variety of organizations that will also help them through that choice and provide support for that, for their lives and the future of that family.
All right. Thank you. Representative Kofia.
So I perhaps it's just lived experience, but I lived all of my life until 2022 being reassured that the Republicans could never possibly overturn Roe versus Wade. And so there was nothing to worry about. And yet here we are. I think we cannot afford to have a legislative majority that is ambiguous at best, but certainly anti-choice at worst, and not respecting half the population's bodily autonomy. So I think it's really important. Know a couple things. I am the 56th vote in a single seat legislative majority, a pro-choice majority. If that flips, we have members of the minority right now who are not only talking about finding a way to ban abortion in Michigan again, but also to ban hormonal birth control, and they've said so publicly. So there's a lot at stake this election, and unfortunately for those of us who believe in reproductive freedom and bodily autonomy and the politicians just minding their own damn business, there's a lot at stake in this election. In 2022, both my opponent and I sprang into action after Roe was overturned. I added collecting signatures for Proposal 3 to protect reproductive freedom in Michigan to what we were already doing. My opponent was the Republican Party chair in Grand Traverse County, and they sprang into action opposing Proposal 3 and working to keep the 1931 abortion ban, which is one of the most extreme in the country, no exceptions for rape and incest, on the books. As your state rep, I have voted to get that 1931 ban just off of our books entirely. I have also voted to protect IVF. I have voted to make Michigan, finally, it was the only state that criminalized surrogacy contracts. We decriminalized surrogacy contracts, and I also voted to expand contraception to help people make decisions for their own bodily autonomy. This is an issue that is still unfortunately very relevant. There's a very clear choice in this election, and it is in fact the key to a pro-choice majority.
Thank you, Representative. Ms. Trombley, you have 1 minute for rebuttal if you'd like.
So I think it is important to rebut this. This is a very emotional issue. Despite what is said, there is no way for the legislature to make any infringement upon those rights. So it's not something that you have to worry about at the national level changing or at the state level changing. If all 110 representatives were Republicans, they couldn't change any of this. So please be aware of what the law is, what our Constitution, how our Constitution reads, and not fall victim to some of the emotional threats that exist in the space today. There's a lot of other very important issues that we need to address as we go forward as a state and as a local community.
All right, we'll leave that there. Thank you.
For Representative Kofia, how can the Michigan legislature help get medical services to rural and poorly served parts of Michigan, especially more mental health and maternity and childbirth health?
Thank you. This one's really important to me, and one of the biggest reasons I got into public service as well. I grew up in a family that worked extremely hard and didn't have a job with health insurance and sometimes went without care. So expanding access to care so that every one of my neighbors actually can go to the doctor when they're sick and get what they need is critical. My background is in social work. Mental health is a major issue. One of the things that we have run into in this region is that there are 0 beds for youth who are in need of inpatient mental health care, and very few for adults. I have spent the better part of 2 years, and my in-district liaison goes to almost every meeting there is on the mental health front. We are trying to find a provider, an entity within this region that would be willing to take on opening youth mental health beds. And I am willing to advocate and get an appropriation to help pay for that, but I need, whether it's the hospital, whether it's CMH, we need an entity that's willing to take that on. I think in terms of bringing more mental health providers, I'm going to link it to housing. it is very difficult for working and middle class people to find a way to live here, and addressing the housing crisis, people cannot afford to move to this area and get housing. So that has been and will continue to be one of my major focuses across professions. I just knocked on a door with 2 nurses from Munson who are talking about moving to Grand Rapids because they're paying almost $2,000 a month in Traverse City. We don't need our rural healthcare professionals moving away. We need them coming here. One of the things we did vote for in the legislature that I think will help somewhat in the mental health space, and this was a bipartisan vote, all 110 of us voted for this, was to cut the time in half for social workers to be able to move here from other states and get their licensure so that they can actually be in place in our schools to support our youth. So there's no one magic wand, unfortunately, but you need tenacity to work on the toughest problems, and that's what you will continue to get from me.
Thank you. Ms. Trombley?
Yes, both issues, obviously they're interrelated, healthcare and mental illness. Healthcare writ large, overall, we need to, from a government perspective, I'll agree with my opponent here from our previous point that keeping the government out of that is always going to be the best thing. It's very important for patients to be able to discuss and make their decisions with their family and their doctors. To the extent we can expand the staffing, the medical industry is no different than many of the other industries where there are significant staffing shortages. That's driven by a lot of things. There's no silver bullet for that as well. But to the extent we can continue to make Michigan as business friendly as possible, I agree on but to the extent we can change up the licensing and encouraging reciprocity across staff lines, state lines, we can increase some of our services there.
Thank you. Rebuttals? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Most members of the House and Senate agree that transparency in government is important, but lacking. We'll start with Ms. Trombley on this question. A workable solution has not been agreed upon in Lansing. What's the holdup, and how will you help move this important issue to passage?
Well, I think I think Betsy can probably speak better to the holdup because I know there was a vote. Transparency is incredibly important. It's important in everything. It's important in life, business, but particularly in government, where government is spending our money. It is imperative that we understand what their priorities are and how they are moving forward. And I think a lot of that stems and goes back to individual accountability. We want government to be accountable. That starts with individual accountability. Each of us needs to be accountable to put out there what our position is, and then we need you all to hold us accountable, and we need to hold each other accountable as we proceed down these paths, because the state faces very serious challenges, and we need to tackle them seriously and honestly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Representative Kofia.
Thank you. So I've been, anyone who's known me for any length of time will tell you, I have been a vocal proponent of elevating transparency and ethics at all levels of government. And that started in my 4 years on the county commission. I was in the minority. I was in a 2-5 minority. But I'm proud to say that during that time, I was able to successfully get some really important improvements and updates to the county ethics policy, including making it apply to the commissioners because it was ambiguous at the time. So that was a fight that we had and we won. In Lansing, I am really active on this front as well. I worked most of last year with our Attorney General Dana Nessel, Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, the Ethics Chair Erin Burns, which, fun fact, she's Jack O'Malley's niece. I work with her in Lansing, and other colleagues. And we put together a 7-bill ethics and transparency package called the BRIGHT Act. BRIGHT is an acronym, and it stands for Bringing Reforms, Integrity, Transparency, and Ethics. I came up with that on the 3-hour drive to Lansing. You have a lot of time to think. But BRIGHT Act tackles many of the problems that, frankly, most state capitals, but particularly the Lansing culture that has existed for a long time, there is a lot of room and need for improvement. Some of the things the BRIGHT Act does: closes the lobbying revolving door, requires disclosures for parties funding lawmaker travel and tickets. I personally avoid that sort of thing, but it does happen. It does real-time campaign finance enforcement, and it forces more transparency on these shadowy, dark money groups, 501c4s, among other things. I'm really excited to tell you the AG and the Secretary of State testified in support of our bill package. And just last week, we just moved one of the bills of the BRIGHT Act. We voted it out on the House floor. There's a lot more to do. I have a commitment from the Speaker of the House, Joe Tate, that we will move the entire BRIGHT Act package yet this term, and I fully intend to hold him to that before we get done this term. But this is critical. As was pointed out, we are there serving you, and you should be able to trust that we are being held to the highest standard. So we'll continue to work to lead on this issue.
All right. A rebuttal?
No.
Okay.
For Representative Kofia, affordable housing is very limited on the peninsula and in this area. Few homes are available, and those that are available are often out of the price range or rental range for many. Lack of housing prevents young families from moving into our area, which also creates work issues. What can the legislature do to help with the problem of housing shortages and affordability?
So this is a lived experience. I've lived rental to rental for most of my adult life. Was lucky enough to get a little fixer-upper in Traverse Heights. But I'm going to give you a really shocking statistic that I've learned from knocking doors. I have met people who are paying $1,500 a month to live in a mobile home park in our community right now. $1,500 to live in a mobile home park. This is a very real crisis. I have been working with Glen Lake Schools. Senator Demus and I both met with them, and from November to now, we've been working to address an issue where their teachers, half of the teachers at Glen Lake Schools are within 5 years of retirement. And the Glen Lake superintendent pointed out to me, he said, I moved here from Kalamazoo and I could barely find a place on a superintendent's salary. So they got creative, and the senator and I, to the point of what we can do, they found some state-owned land that has some restrictions right now, and Senator Demus and I agreed to introduce the same bill, him in the Senate, me in the House, that would remove some barriers in state law to allow that land to be used for housing for our teachers and our first responders. DNR just met with us last week, and they didn't really want it to be a state law, so they made a deal with us that they'll just change the rule for this one issue in Leelanau County, which we're still going to count as a win because it addresses the housing need for our teachers in that instance. There are other things that we can do and that we are doing. When I was on the Grand Traverse County Commission, it kind of drove me wild that state law around brownfield redevelopment, putting blighted and obsolete properties back on the tax rolls and into production, prohibited housing as an allowed use. So when I got to Lansing, we voted and changed the law, and now housing is an explicit use. Other things we've been able to do, and actually there's a bill package right now that I support that would allow us to tax our vacationers, use the funds from those short-term rentals toward building housing for our permanent workforce, as well as pay for infrastructure and public safety. There are more things we can do, but to me, this is again one of those tough problems you have to be tenacious about until we get it done.
Thank you. Ms. Trump.
I completely agree that we have a crisis. Our area is absolutely not alone in this crisis. Affordable, I think, but it is also important to be somewhat practical about this. Affordable is in the eye of the beholder. I think it's important also to separate out whether we're talking subsidized housing or just lower price housing as opposed to, the multi-million, the more of the starter homes. Those are very different issues, and there's not a one size fits all solution for all of that. So if we're going to focus on the subsidized housing, again, I will probably be a broken record here this evening because I don't think Lansing is going to be the solution to all of our problems. And so if you disagree with me, we'll disagree right now, but hopefully we can continue to talk about it. There are things Lansing can do. The legislature can do a few things. They can work with the local folks to work tax credits. Lansing is completely responsible for driving efficiencies across our departments and across regulations. There are significant delays in getting things done that we just seem to tolerate because we say, oh, that's government and they operate slowly. That doesn't make it any more acceptable. Lansing the legislature could drive forward and work an expansion of some of the utilities and the infrastructure. That would also then make whatever housing gets built on top of that, that much more affordable. So there are ways to move forward and to move the needle, and there's not one size fits all.
Thank you. Rebuttals?
Not really a rebuttal, just something I didn't have time for in the first part. I just wanted to share, I am on a particular bill package specific to housing, and it just so happens I testified this morning. It has made it all the way through the House with bipartisan support, and it is now in the Senate, and I just testified this morning in support of it in the Senate, and it's supposed to be coming up for a vote next week. It's giving more tools for the Michigan Housing Development Authority, particularly around assisting folks with disabilities. If there are overruns in the cost of trying to build out their housing, it is giving them more flexibility. There's some other things about the bill package as well, but it just so happens again that a bill package that I'm a sponsor on got a hearing this morning, so cross your fingers. They said they're going to vote it out of the Senate, and then it just needs the governor's signature.
Thank you.
Ms. Trombley, this next question will start with you, and we're going to stay in the realm of housing and housing issues. What would be the best answer to some of the problems that short-term rentals have produced in our region? And is this issue best solved at the local level or at the state level?
3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count what my answer is. Local, hands down. When going across this district, each of the townships had their own approach to this challenge. It's a challenge, it's a benefit. It depends on who you're talking to, how people perceive this issue. I wholeheartedly will support local decisions. Local municipalities are best situated to know what is going to work with their homeowners in their communities in terms of what they can regulate and not regulate. This is not something for Lansing to weigh in on, in my opinion. I think I'm going to stop right there.
All right, Representative Cofia.
Sure. So when I was on the county commission, the past legislature did wade into this whole removing local communities' ability to regulate short-term rentals, and they got smacked down pretty hard. And frankly, I was a part of that as a county commissioner, asking the state to keep it in the local jurisdiction. And I'll just go back to what I mentioned in the previous answer about there is a current bill package that has been put together by one of my fellow reps from the South Haven area. It's got Saugatuck. They're dealing with a lot of the same things that we are in our region. We're an incredibly beautiful region. Lots of folks are wanting to come here. And it's been very challenging to balance all the pressures on the housing stock and infrastructure and public safety from such a large influx of visitors. And it is impacting their access to housing stock. So that bill package, which I do support, would create a statewide registry so that local communities can actually see all of the Airbnbs and Vrbo's would actually be required to register so that the local community can see where they are. And then also would allow local communities to do a 6% excise tax to build housing and to pay for public safety and infrastructure.
Rebuttal?
I would just say I would oppose the registry, and I would oppose the taxation at this point.
Thank you both.
Representative Cofia. Senate Bill 275 would create a clean fuel standard in Michigan. Modeled after similar laws in California, Oregon, and Washington, the law would impose a 25% reduction in carbon emissions of fuels by 2035. Would you support this proposed legislation, and why or why not?
So I'm still looking at this bill, and even though it is supported by some of my fellow Democrats as sponsors, I'm still on the fence as to whether I think this bill hits the mark. So to be determined, this is the clean fuel standard. There's a lot of greenwashing out there about what is actually good for the environment and frankly, what is viable for the motorists. So I'm still looking at that one, and I have not landed on where I will vote on that particular bill.
Ms. Trombley.
I would agree. I don't know all of the details. I would want to look at that. I can say that in general, California and the state of Washington are not the 2 models. I'll throw New York in there as well. They are not the models that I think Michigan should follow going forward. So other than perhaps to do the exact opposite of what they've done. You know, we're looking at, quite frankly, you know, some lessons learned that we could learn from them, but I doubt that we're going to follow in those footsteps. Energy is just, it's so critical. I think everyone, not a one of us in this room, no one in Lansing wants to have less than clean energy, but it's always going to be critical to make sure we have an all of the above policy on energy, that it needs to be sustainable, it needs to be reliable, and it needs to be affordable.
Thank you. Rebuttals?
All right. Let's talk about climate change. Is Michigan doing enough to address climate change? And what would you do as a state lawmaker when it comes to the state's policy toward climate? This question begins with Ms. Trump.
So I'm probably not going to do much on this topic. For me, I think what's important, this is an area where you can find a lot of science on both sides. Science can argue science. In my mind, a lot of that ends up being theoretical and hypothetical, and we have so many problems and challenges that we need to address that we can completely get to the root cause of, lay in a plan of attack and make something happen. I think we ought to stay focused there. So I probably will not be very supportive of anything under that broad umbrella. I think another important point on that is we need to have context on this subject. Again, it's an emotional one, and I apologize for those of you if I come up, if I'm not touchy-feely enough. That is not that's not the world I live in. I live in the world of facts. And context is important, particularly with climate change and energy. To the extent we brought, in Michigan, we brought our carbon to zero. We did absolutely everything. Tomorrow, we would not change. We would barely be a pebble in Lake Michigan in terms of our impact on the United States, let alone the globe. Not to say that we don't need to be cognizant of being responsible for the environment. I'm wholeheartedly there, but we need to be reasonable and realistic in terms of what we're going to do, particularly when it's going to cause, it will cost money and will cause a lot to change in our daily lives.
Representative Kofia.
So even traditional energy companies agree that climate change is real and happening and is established and are actively moving in that direction. And things that are expensive, talk about Asheville being underwater, talk about these 100-year and 1,000-year storms that are now happening every other year. Maybe it's because because I've been watching politicians deny climate science for most of my adult life. Maybe it's because I have a 6-year-old niece and an 11-year-old nephew, and I think they deserve a livable planet. But I am going to treat it as the real threat that it is. And I am going to do what I can. And what we have done in Michigan already, Michigan has the most clean energy jobs and workers in the Midwest, and we're growing. We are in the position now to draw down over $8 billion in federal infrastructure money because we adopted Governor Gretchen Whitmer's My Healthy Climate Plan. We codified it. And what that does is move us in the direction of clean, carbon neutral energy as a state by 2040. We were one of the laggards in the country. We are now positioned as one of the leaders. And again, those federal dollars, those billions of dollars to build out our clean energy infrastructure and create all those over 100,000 jobs as anticipated, it was required that we adopt a standard. If we had not done that, Wisconsin, Ohio, Minnesota would have been more than happy to take those billions of dollars. But Michigan is also one of the leaders in now drawing down those federal dollars to build out for cleaner and more renewable, and I will say more sustainable. If we can have more regional and statewide energy sources that are also cleaner, that is a good thing, more energy independence. So, I do think that it is important to respect climate science. It is established. And lastly, I will give a shout out to Cherryland Electric Co-op, which I know powers much of this region. They're ahead of even the state. They have a goal to be 100% clean energy by 2030. They're one of the best in class. So a lot of us are taking it really seriously and taking meaningful action.
Would you like a rebuttal?
Yes, please. I completely agree with energy independence. And again, I may say something that you guys are not going to like. $8 billion coming from the federal government, that's our money. It's not some magic pot in the sky. Those are our tax dollars that we sent to Washington, perhaps coming back to us. But for me, it should not be a competition as to which state gets more money from the government. We need money to execute the mission of government. I do not argue that, but we must always be serious about how we're spending, where we're spending, and what return on that investment we are going to receive. My final comment is on mandates. We can mandate all we want. If a mandate is not based upon technology and something that is reasonable and realistic, it is not going to benefit any of us.
Thank you both.
Representative Kofia, in 2022, voters passed Proposal 2 to expand voting rights and to make our election easily accessible to all, yet remain secure. Efforts since have been aimed at restricting easy access to voting process. Do you believe Proposal 2 rights are under attack? And would you be in favor of any effort to restrict voter access?
Whether voting, I don't know that I've seen that Proposal 2 is under attack. I do know that it is important as we implement these expanded voting rights, 9 days of early voting, for example, that we have rural voices at the table. We have a majority, Democratic majority. Many of my colleagues are from suburban and urban areas, and they have a different way of essentially managing the number of voters that they have. So what I have done with the Proposal 2 rollout is to advocate with the Secretary of State and make sure that our rural clerks are being heard about the extra expense relative to the number of voters that they have to do 9 days of early voting. And we were able to get a set of rules and some funding so that they could pool resources, maybe have a hub for the 9 days of early voting versus every single rural township hosting their own and paying staff and doing all the same things for a relatively small number of voters. So my job has been to make sure that we are advocating so that rural voters are enfranchised, but that it is a practical rollout for rural communities. Other than that, one of the things I'll just say, since we are talking about enfranchising the vote, one of my bills that was passed and has been signed by the governor actually engages our 16 and 17-year-olds to get pre-registered to vote. They can't vote until they're 18, but it is something that in other states that have implemented it, it shows that first-time voters in states that have pre-registration actually goes up significantly with young people. It's already happening from Ishpeming in the UP to Benton Harbor downstate, young people who are juniors and seniors in high school. I'm looking at you guys back there, who are very engaged. You care about the issues. This is a way for you to get pre-registered and have it already taken care of for when you turn 18 and will be able to vote for the first time. I was really excited to get that signed into law. And I do believe strongly that we should make sure that every eligible person is able to have their voice heard.
Ms. Trombley.
Thank you. Elections, here we are. We're full on in election season right now, and hopefully we've got 35 more days. 5 weeks from today.
Who's counting them?
We all are counting these days. I don't know that there's anything under attack. What I would say is, again, there is a significant expense with the early voting. Personally, I didn't get a vote in this. I guess other than Prop 2. And for me, I think it's imperative that we take voting seriously. So we have to show an ID to get on an airplane, to do practically anything in this world. You got to have an ID, a valid ID, and they should only go to American, U.S. citizens, in my opinion. So the expense is a concern for me. Again, it's codified now, so we can't necessarily undo any of that. I appreciate that there are efforts underway to try to be as efficient as possible. Our absentee ballots really allowed early voting. There are individuals that feel compelled to want to deliver their ballot themselves, which they could do actually under either path. But I'll state that I have great confidence in our local township and county clerks. They take it very seriously. I've worked the absentee poll since I've returned back up here. Great confidence in that, and appreciate all that everyone does to make the process as secure as possible. and be diligent in executing the process, as well as any and all of the changes that have been inflicted upon them. And get out and vote before or on November 5.
Rebuttals.
Just to clarify that proposal 2 was an overwhelming vote of the people, and so our responsibility in the legislature in my first term was to effectively implement it and advocate for proper funding, and both of which we have done.
Thank you.
The minimum wage is mandated to change beginning this coming February and each year thereafter. The recent ruling also eliminates the tipped wage scale for hospitality workers and mandates paid sick leave for all employees. Ms. Trombley, this begins with you, this question. How will this impact businesses and workers in the district?
It's terrible. I've spent a lot of time talking to a lot of small businesses, and in particular, restaurants and those that are dealing with the tipped wage. All of the components are going to have serious ramifications to our business. And I would hope that the House would return immediately to address this issue so that it does not take effect February 21. In general, the minimum wage, most organizations are paying above the minimum wage where there's not a tip. The minimum wage is paid out in the event that a tipped employee doesn't receive tips sufficient to make minimum wage. That becomes moot. The bigger issues are the paid time off. Any employee can not show up and no notice, no show for up to 3 days. That will cause tremendous pressure on businesses to perform and to execute their businesses and deliver their services with the current staffing shortage that exists. Restaurants have estimated it'll be anywhere from $35,000 to $350,000 for them to have to estimate and maintain those costs on their books in the event those employees take that time off. I do not believe that we should have any kind of a one-size-fits-all. As a business person for my entire career, it's imperative that business owners and managers have the opportunity to put together their benefits package and their pay packages so that they can both reward and pay for their staff, but also balance that with what the clients and their customers can afford. Only business people can do that, and the government weighing in on that, I think, is always going to have less than optimal results.
Representative Kofia.
Thank you. So this, just to review how we got here, the legislature in 2018 intervened with a ballot initiative that had collected enough signatures, and I'm seeing some people in this room who I know have been a part of collecting hundreds of thousands of signatures to put something on the ballot. The legislature at that time intervened, adopted what was on the ballot for paid sick leave, tipped minimum wage increase, and then amended it the same session. The Supreme Court just ruled in July that that was unconstitutional, that the legislature overstepped. What they did by doing that was prevent it from going to the ballot for the vote of the people. I am actually curious whether it would have even passed, but we will never know because the legislature in 2018 intercepted it. So here we are now. The Supreme Court ruling in July, end of July, there has been a lot of conversation in my caucus. I know that we believe now we do have a role to play to make this workable for both workers who need to take time off when they're sick and for business owners, small business owners who need to be able to continue to survive and thrive. Here are a couple things I know. Nobody wants your server to come to work sick and cough on your food. I used to work in the service industry. I used to be a childcare worker. You don't want people coming to work taking care of your children when they're sick. We have got to come to the table. I've been talking to servers who want us to get rid of the tipped minimum wage. I'm with them. I think we should probably get rid of that because I don't think it was well thought out. The paid sick leave thing, I have worked at jobs where I was forced to come to work sick because I couldn't afford to not. I do believe we need to come to something that's workable for the business community, but also people need to be able to stay home when they're sick and take care of themselves. So we'll figure it out.
Rebuttal?
No.
Representative Kofia, gun violence continues in our schools, colleges, and society. Can the legislature find more ways to lessen these tragedies without diminishing our Second Amendment rights.
So within 2 months of my tenure in the state legislature, we had the unthinkable happen 4 miles away at the campus of Michigan State University. 3 beautiful young people were gunned down and murdered by a mass shooter. Others were badly injured and thousands of students were traumatized. I have grown up as what I call the last of the Columbine pre-Columbine generation. I graduated a few years before Columbine, and I remember when it wasn't normal, when it wasn't a thing you would just read on a Tuesday, that there's been another mass shooting in a school. And I've watched my whole life waiting for political leaders to find some courage to stand up to the very moneyed and powerful gun lobby and do the right thing. We have taken action. We took action in Lansing, first responsible gun legislation in decades, and enacted universal background checks, which are wildly supported, huge percentage of Michiganders support. Safe storage laws we enacted, and also red flag laws so that people who are a danger to themselves or others temporarily have their weapons removed. Let me be clear, I grew up in a hunting family. That's part of how we fed ourselves in the winter with venison. I'm an excellent shot with a pistol, and I enjoy target shooting with my sheriff in Grand Traverse. And this is about reasonable protections for public safety, and especially our children. There is more we can do. I think we should probably look at some additional action, but for now, I am glad that we were finally able to take some meaningful action. The last thing, and I know I have 30 seconds, but the last thing we did, which I thought was wild that we hadn't already done it long ago, we voted, and it has been put into law, to prevent domestic abusers from having access to guns for at least 8 years after their conviction. The statistics are clear. When there's a weapon in the home and there's a domestic abuser, the chances of a mortal injury to a victim of domestic violence goes up significantly. So that was the right thing to do, but yes, there's more we can do.
Ms. Trombley.
Another very emotional subject. I too grew up in a home with weapons. My father hunted everything that he could possibly hunt, I'll say it that way. He was very avid, but did so always very responsibly. All 5 of, I'm the oldest of 5 children. We were all raised. We knew exactly where the weapons were in the home. We knew exactly how to use them. We knew that there was safe storage. I will never argue that individuals, particularly gun owners, must always be responsible with their guns. That said, what can Lansing do? We could have 3,000 laws on the books. It's not going to stop that one person who is compelled to create violence in any kind of circumstance. I know that's a terrible thing to say, and we don't want to hear that, but at some point we have to understand what we can and cannot do. It's imperative that we be cautious with additional laws, because every law we put on the book, quite frankly, is an infringement on that Second Amendment. And that, again, may not be something popular to say, but I'm not running to say all the nice things. I'm running because some truths we have to say. And as adults, I think we've been remiss in calling out inappropriate behavior and celebrating behavior that is good. As a mother, as a grown adult, as a responsible individual, I think it's important that we do that, and I will continue to do so.
Involved?
I think it's important to look at the fact that gun violence has happened globally, but countries that have taken decisive action have seen a dramatic decrease in school shootings and other types of mass shootings. It does have a real impact when you actually take action to protect the most vulnerable. Look, I used to work in an elementary school. I had to do lockdown drills with young children with special needs. Our kids deserve us to step up and take reasonable, responsible actions that, yes, balance Second Amendment rights, but also balance our right to be safe at a splash pad, at a parade, at an elementary school, in a synagogue or a church. We are unique in the world for the unbelievable escalation in gun violence, and we have a responsibility to see how other countries that have actually taken meaningful action, they have seen a dramatic reduction. I think one child's life and safety is certainly worth us as politicians having a spine and doing what is necessary.
Thank you.
Well, this is the cherry pie debate. So we should end with this question. Leelanau County grows more tart cherries than anywhere in the United States. Market orders, imports, and climate change have taken a toll on local farmers. What is being done to address this situation, and what more can be done to help our farm families? Ms. Trombley, this question starts with you.
So this is an area where, while I don't have a specific solution, I think this is an area where I think we need to have discussion. We have over 50,000 farms in Michigan, and clearly we have it here. It's one of the reasons I chose to come here instead of downstate where I spent most of my time. I am proud of our farmers and our ranchers who are working creative solutions to move things forward, to take care of things for their livelihood and to move things forward, whether we're moving into agritourism. You can argue whether you like more of the vineyards than the orchards. You can go into all of that, but the goodness is that we live in a climate where we are very well suited for that, and we need to ensure that we always support that. We are indeed facing a farming crisis, and it's imperative that we work together to figure out what are those potential solutions going forward. I'm not into necessarily a handout, but perhaps a hand up. When we're facing crises, we need to be able to work together and find alternative solutions, albeit temporary or permanent. In my mind, from my experience, a food crisis is ultimately a national security crisis. Food is so critical, and we need to continue to be able to support our farmers and our ranchers as they move things forward and to help as they evolve, to enable either, whether it's through investments or other kind of support activities to make sure that they are sustainable.
Representative Kofia.
So this is a huge issue for our region. Obviously, our farms, our orchards are a huge part of our way of life, and agriculture is the second largest economic sector in Michigan. This year, speaking of cherries, our tarts and sweets, because of climate change and because of the fact that we no longer have winters, we suffered catastrophic loss of both our sweets and tarts. And what happened was no winter, and I've met with lots of farmers, so they've explained it all to me, and they'll correct me if I get anything wrong. We had no winter, meaning that the pests that are usually killed off in the winter didn't die, and in fact became supercharged and just devastated the crop. Meanwhile, because again of climate change, too warm of a winter, very warm periods, very wet periods that also allowed a brown rot, which hurt a lot of the rest of the crop as well. And so the farmers spent all year this year, it's like a slow moving disaster, using much more pesticide and other things, trying to save this crop that ultimately could not be saved. Two things, I've met with Jim Bardenhagen and Art McManus, some of our farmers in the region, and they have asked me to advocate for an appropriation for some direct relief. Art mentioned that his brother George, who used to be a senator, managed to do that many, many years ago and was able to be successful. So he sort of threw a gauntlet down for me. Some immediate relief for the farmers because they are facing these really astronomical bills for what it cost them to try to save a crop that could not be saved. I am in the process of working with my approach on that right now. We also voted in this year's budget $6.1 million for MDARD, and that was specifically for climate resilience work to help our farmers mitigate climate-caused crop loss. I'm hearing from my farmers that they need more flexibility in zoning regulations so that they can diversify what they do with their land. And I am still listening, but right now, those are some of the things that I'm working on immediately from what I've heard from my cherry farmers.
Ms. Trombley, your rebuttal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. This concludes the question and answer portion of the event. Each candidate will now give a 2-minute closing comment. Again, do not exceed your 2 minutes. And as Representative Kofia started the evening, Ms. Trombley, you get to have the first closing statement.
Well, thank you very much. I'm a little surprised we didn't have more questions on spending. I've knocked a lot of doors. I've been in every single township across this beautiful district where we are blessed to live. And pretty much to a person, the concern is government spending and what can we do about it. So to the extent, you can take that back to Lansing as we wrap out this session, it's imperative that we think about it. As individuals, as all of us, we have we live with zero-sum budgets. We only have so much money in our bank accounts. And the government needs to operate in that very same way, in my mind. Navigating our future is very serious business. For me, I've been a lifelong planner. I'm always looking forward. We learn from the past, but it's imperative that we move forward, focus forward, and drive positive change. We owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to our children and our grandchildren. And I think you've probably seen there's a fairly stark contrast between my opponent and I, and a lot of it comes down to to what extent government is the solution and how we address and solve problems. And while I think this has been I appreciate the civility. We're sometimes outside, we're not seeing civility, and people feel like they can't articulate the extent to which they are still feeling pain in their wallet. And they share with me that they are afraid to use their voice to either ask questions or to articulate that they still are feeling pain. And I would ask if any of you in this room are feeling that you feel a disconnect between what you're being told and what you feel in your head, in your heart, and in your wallet, to listen to that voice and use it to direct your vote. Thank you very much.
Representative Kofia.
Thank you. Thank you again to the League and to IPR and to the Enterprise and to all of you and whoever made and brought the pie. Especially thank you to you. So folks, as a blue-collar Northern Michigan kid who has grown up here, I just need to say to you again what an honor and a privilege it has been to actually get to go to Lansing and advocate and represent all of you. I never take that for granted. It is an incredible opportunity, and I will continue to work hard on behalf of Northern Michigan because that's what we deserve. I'm running because this is my home, because my roots are deep here, and I believe passionately that we deserve leaders in Lansing who are going to advocate for us and who are going to work to make sure that young people, college students, young families starting out, seniors, workers, business owners, that we all have a region where we can all thrive. That's why I'm in public service. My entire approach to public service from my county commission days to now has been that we're there to solve problems. We're there to come alongside with local leaders and community partners and local government to address problems, not pass the buck. And so I have, and I will continue to work with any good faith partner on our region's toughest challenges: housing, mental health and healthcare access, good paying jobs, childcare. I have built strong bipartisan relationships from my sheriff, Mike Shea, to Senator John DeMoose. And John always says, we will never agree on guns and abortion, but there's so much that we can and do work together on, like housing for Glen Lake teachers, right? Like $15 million for Freshwater Research Center and jobs for our region. The job is to serve this community, and in a second term, you will continue to get what you got from me: pragmatic, practical, bipartisan, and always Team Northern Michigan. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I hope to earn your vote.
Thank you very much to the candidates. We appreciate you being willing to serve and make our community and state much better. And you may now applaud for the
We want to say thanks to all of you in the audience as well for being here, being respectful tonight. And we'd also like to again recognize Leelanau Coffee Roasting Company, Chimoski Bakery, and Cherry Republic for the coffee, the pie, the ice cream, and to the League of Women Voters for being here tonight as well. They're set up over by the entrance. And thanks to staff at IPR and Enterprise for making tonight run smoothly. Please vote on or before November 5th in all upcoming elections. Both of our news organizations, the Enterprise and IPR, will continue covering the upcoming elections. And we will rebroadcast